Kia ora and welcome to Tarmac. I'm Dave.
I'm Matthew, and today we're at the hallowed grounds of Pukekohe Park with the unmistakable Honda Civic Type-R.
That's right, those racing noises are just epic and a great backdrop for such an epic sports car that we have here. Come, let's take a look at this.
Now, although this is the 6th generation in the Type-R's lineage, this is actually the 3rd generation in the next step, or the 2nd generation of Type-Rs. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, there was a first generation of models that were I guess sort of more based on sort of slight improvements on the normal Civic. This one is, or the next generation actually was a Type-R from the ground up, or a Civic Type-R from the ground up. This one is the FL5, and it's basically, as you'll see straight away, it's less gearish than the previous model, so it's a little bit toned down, a little bit more mature when it comes to sort of overall appearance. The other thing, it's basically bigger, a wider and longer wheelbase. There's a better track on it, so it just looks more squat, more, I don't know, poised and ready for the track, which is, ideally what you want a Type-R to be looking at. It's also the aerodynamics are a lot more functional. So whereas the one before, a lot of it was cosmetic when it came to what it looked like and the aerodynamics, this one is very, very functional. So looking at the grille here, the airflow comes straight through here and out through this bonnet scoop here, and really does make sure that there's a lot of airflow through this engine, which I'll get to in a moment. Again, looking at its profile, it is more squat, close to the ground, ready for action, which is, like I said, exactly what you want in a Type-R. Lovely flowing roof line here. See the contrast in the likes of the mirror caps, the rim across, the sills as well, making sure that the color pops for whatever color you go for. I think there's the blue one, which is really awesome. Anyway, the wheels themselves, 19-inch wheels with what they call a reverse rim, so they look bigger than they actually sort of are, and also Type-R red brake calipers, looking good there. These vents, again, very functional, making sure the airflow comes and hugs the profile here, and again, make sure that this really does just slip through the air really well. For me, the big improvement back here is this wing. Look at that, it's just less garish than it was before. But what they've done when testing is actually driven this at 270 kilometers per hour and made sure that this doesn't bow down and impede your vision on the way through. So lots gone on with there. Better looking lights around here, and also your rear valance, make sure there's again more airflow, and they've still got this 3-chamber exhaust back here, which is actually a better sports exhaust that gives a better note and apparently encourages you to drive quicker like you'd need it. Let's check under the bonnet. What we have here is a much improved Honda powertrain. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine that gives you 235 kilowatts of power and 420 newton meters of torque, tons. The turbo's been improved, the intercooler has been improved, and the intakes are a lot bigger, so tons have gone on underneath this vented bonnet. It's also strapped to a 6-speed manual box, which is just an absolute dream to drive. Can't wait to show you that. Anyway, speaking of things that are much improved and should have more than 6 gears, Matthew's inside and he'll show you what's going on in there.
Well, honestly, I wish I could go into top gear as easily as this Civic Type-R could. But before we get into the drive, let's talk about where you're sitting, the interior here. Well, obviously there's a lot of bits shared with the Civic, but you don't want to know about that. You want to know what's Type-R in here. So let's start off with the elephant in the room here, the seats. Well, they're red and bolstered, and they feel extremely sporty in the way they look and when you sit in them. Granted, it is a bit of a task getting in and out, but that's the price you pay for some real good cornering confidence, shall we say, that it gives you. The other really cool thing is how they've done the carpeting, and the flooring is all sort of red. You've got red seat belts as well, stuff to really encourage you and elk you on to put your foot down, to go through the gears, all that good stuff. Speaking of the gears, well, you've got this, an actual manual gearbox, 6-speed of course, with a nice metal top there, which feels really good to hold. The other key thing in here is actually this plate there. So it says Type-R Civic, and it'll actually give you the serial number of the particular Type-R that you've purchased. So a thing that Honda does with these Type-Rs, and previously that plate used to be in the middle here, and now it's up there. The other really key thing about this interior is the R button right there, but I'll get to that in just a second when we look at the instrument cluster. The infotainment screen here is mounted on the top. It's Honda's typical infotainment screen, which you find across their range. You flick through and you get a whole bunch of the different colored options that give you information about the car, your trips, and the phone you've connected and all that stuff. But really what we're looking for here is the Honda Log R. So available up there and here. But if I click on there, it takes me into this data logging system, if you like. And I can start different logs. I can pair it with the app to actually record my performance metrics on different occasions as well. So there's several different things you can do with this data log here. Now I'll start off with the first screen, which is your G-force meter. And you can see there it measures a whole spectrum of G-forces across the different sides of the car too. So not just one for the car as a whole. Really sophisticated stuff. Moving on to the next screen, and you have some more metrics in terms of your temperatures and pressures, your oil and water on the left, and then your air and your boost pressure on the right for your turbo, of course. Flicking through the next screen, and you have the same sort of metrics displayed in a different sort of gauge format there. Very cool to see while going around on a racetrack, especially that boost pressure building up. Looks great. The right one, that's the screen that you see when you are actually recording data on the app that's paired with this screen. Again, an update for that is coming, so expect to see that sometime soon. Speaking of things you can see, let's take a look at the instrument cluster. Ahead of the driver, well, I've got the car set up in comfort mode right now, so you've got a mix of your digital screen as well as analog dials on the side, your fuel and temperature gauges there. In front of you in comfort mode, well, the screen is displayed in a traditional sort of format. So you've got your rev counter on the right, your rev counter on the left and your speed on the right, and then the car in the middle there, and everything sort of bluish and a bit more relaxed. If I move up into the next mode, which is sport, everything goes into a reddish and black sort of thing to give you that little bit of extra motivation to go quickly and drive sportily, shall I say. The next one up, well, that's individual, and here you can customize a whole bunch of stuff about the car, like the exhaust and the engine response and all that stuff. But the really cool thing is actually when you press R mode, and well, that takes you into this sort of screen layout, which is completely different to any of the others. You've got that big red rev counter up the top there in typical race car style. And if you notice, the red zone there at the top is actually made to look like the front grille of this car in that honeycomb style. Really cool, actually. You get your gearing, which shows up right in the middle in that big red flash there, and then of course your audio input and range and a few other metrics. Notice the speed as well, tucked away rather discreetly in the corner there. In terms of discretion, well, there's all the red stuff isn't really hiding anything, and the steering wheel is definitely not hiding this car's ability. It's wrapped in this really nice Alcantara. It's got a contrast red stitching in typical Type-R fashion. You've got that big red Honda badge sitting in the steering wheel there. And then of course, for a bit of comfort, you've got your steering mounted buttons there, control your audio and your cruise control as well. So they have thought about the driver's comfort and practicality as well. Speaking of the driver, well, it's all well and good for me to talk about this, but this is the driver's car. So let's go test it out.
The FL5, you can just hear that, is such an improvement over the previous model. I mean, in looks alone, it certainly appeals more to somebody of, I don't know, who's not a 2-year-old really. But in saying that, I really enjoyed the other model, and it sold so many models or so many units in New Zealand, so Kiwis love it as well. But this is just such a big improvement.
I've got to say, I did really like the FK8's crazy styling and its fins and, you know, spoilers and all that stuff. But again, maybe I am 2 years old.
Yeah.
In appealing, I can't agree more with the appeal now of the Civic Type-R is so much broader because of the more sensible styling of this newest generation, as well as the slightly turned up exhaust note. I've got to say, I quite like that too.
Yeah, what are they saying? That it encourages you to drive faster, and oh, it really does. The tech's improved, as Matthew showed you, all the way around, and it just throws so much sportiness, particularly when you push the Type-R button, and that's really where this vehicle comes into its own, and push those revs right up so that you're getting towards the red line and things like that. It just loves it, and the rev matching when you're going down gear, oh, it's just fun.
Well, as if you needed more incentive to drive this thing quickly, because I mean, look around us, the red seats, the red carpets, the red seat belts as well. It's just all red. It really encourages you to drive it quickly.
Like a fire engine. But the seats, as you speaking about the seats, they are so comfortable. Getting in and out is a pain in the ass, I have to say, but once you're in, it's there, you're cocooned, you're ready to stay whichever corner you want to go into. It's just great, and you know, the support is immaculate, really good. Visibility, the A pillars are not that thick, which is great. The windscreen, what they've called it is, there's a name for it, but basically it just means that your visibility across is just great. You can see there's so much windscreen. The rear, you know, it's a hatchback, so there's not going to be massive amounts back there, but on the whole, visibility around is good.
Even with that large spoiler in the back, as you can see there, it's not too bad looking out the back. But who's looking out the back anyway in a car like this? Only to leave the other people on the road behind, I suppose.
Suspension in R mode is hard, but I kind of want that. When you're in a sports car, you want to feel the road below, and it's starting to shake my voice because you can actually feel virtually all the divots and stuff that New Zealand roads have on offer. And the steering wheel, just this Alcantara feel in your hand. It feels sporty. You almost want to get some racing gloves on and go the whole hog.
I think even with the suspension feeling hard, that is true, but the way this car makes you feel when you're sitting, you just feel so planted, like nothing can shake you off the road, and especially around corners. It just loves the corners.
It does, and that wider track. I mean, this is a 35 km/h corner that I've just taken at 90. That's ridiculous. And just, it holds. It's just such a wide track, and it's a point and shoot car, which is what you want in a Type-R.
I think it embodies everything the Type-R, you know, says it does on the tin. It's sporty, it looks the part, and the way it makes you feel pretty special, I think, is the answer to that.
I agree. Stereo wise, it's got a stereo, but more importantly, I think you're so involved with the drive because of the gearbox, which is so tight, and just the noise that it gives you, the revving up, the revving down, the downshift is just, yeah, genius.
I don't think we've had the radio on at all, to be honest, in our drive, because that exhaust note now is much more alive, and with every shift of the gear it does something nice, a little bit of a symphony for your ears, and I think it is a much needed improvement.
The funny thing is, it is a 4-seater rather than a 5-seater, because if you're there's cup holders in the middle bit where it's going to be a bumpy ride for you on that's for sure.
Yeah. In saying that though, space at the back is not too bad, because you've got two relatively comfortable seats on either side, and then you've also got that sloping roofline, which doesn't actually really cut into your headspace. So they've made a sharp, stylish looking car, but in a way that is also practical. Again, typical of the Civic Type-R.
Oh, we don't want practical, we want insane, which is what this thing is. So there you have it, the new Honda Civic Type-R 6th generation FL5, sorry. For me, such an improvement in looks, obviously tech, and just drivability. It's so well planted, and that gearbox, oh, you just want to keep changing gear. I mean, it's such an all-round fulfilling drive for me. I'm a big fan.
I've got to second that, actually. As someone who's driven and owned a lot of hot hatches, this has got to be right up there with the best, I think.
Yep, and well, stay tuned for the next one. We'll see what else we've got on the driveway and coming out your way. See you soon.